correspondent is at the Pentagon. Louis, was this expected? What was the thought process, and what happened at the Pentagon after these words were spoken?
Hey, McGraw. Well, what we're talking about here is that the Pentagon stands ready to defend the U.S. Allies in the region, particularly South Korea. The ironclad commitment that the United States has to the U.S.-South Korea alliance. So that's the standard line that we're going to hear from the Pentagon, regardless of what the tough talk might be from the White House, particularly from the president. But it's a coordinated action in response to media interest after the Washington Post came out with their Defense Intelligence Agency analysis that, yes, the U.S. now believes that North Korea has the capability of pairing up a small nuclear warhead and placing that atop an ICBM, a missile that could reach the United States, something which, of course, is of major concern. But this is something that the U.S. intelligence has been monitoring for years. They've been monitoring this progress. They've been looking to see whether they could develop that capability. We saw that picture I think it was last year, Kim Jong-un, North Korea's leader, standing next to that shiny metallic ball, which they claimed was a nuclear warhead. May have been a prop at the time, but now U.S. intelligence believes that this is actually the case.
So, as oftentimes when Donald Trump says something, people hear two different things. Some people, like Senator McCain and others, are saying, "Boy, that's really the wrong kind of conversation to have through the media with North Korea." Others are saying it was a calculated, well-planned out, thought-out response that the generals told him to say. Are we hearing either way? What was this off the cuff, or was this planned?
Well, you know what? The president's comments came at an opioid addiction conference up there in Bedminster, New Jersey. He knew that he was going to be getting asked this question because obviously the entire media establishment was following this story yesterday afternoon. It appears now, based on what we're hearing from Secretary of State Tillerson, who ironically enough landed in Guam this morning, returning from a trip to Asia, that he's comfortable with the president's comments, and that the president's comments were intended to speak in the language that Kim Jong-un can understand. So it sounds like it may have been a coordinated effort. You've seen those responses from senior members of Congress saying, "Hey, be careful in when matching this rhetoric with North Korea, because you don't want things to lead to an escalation or a miscalculation, because words matter when it comes to something like this." But it seems now like the indication is that this may have been a coordinated term to get North Korea's attention so they can understand where the United States position is.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that it's a red line without drawing a red line, in a sense.
It is, and one of the things that's, it's a very broad term. He didn't specifically say what he was going to refer to, because all he talked about was just a threat, any threat from North Korea to the United States. It's hard to determine exactly what the president was talking about, but I think he wants it to be blunt with North Korea, and it appears that's what he got, because a couple hours later, we got this other response from North Korea that we want to specifically target Guam, potentially, where the U.S. has some key military bases that could be used in whatever military operation could be conducted against North Korea, if that should ever happen, which is highly unlikely. But Guam is something that North Korea seems to be fixated on, and so that's why they specifically mentioned it in their response, apparently, to President Trump's comments yesterday.
The other thing that people are saying is that it wasn't necessarily directed just at North Korea, but also for China as well.
Right, the message being that the United States wants to increase the pressure on China so that China can exert its leverage with North Korea. These are two neighbor countries. China is North Korea's biggest trading partner. The thinking has always been that they could exert a lot of economic leverage to try to influence North Korea's ballistic missile or nuclear weapons programs. You've seen President Trump kind of been on both sides of the fence about whether China has actually succeeded in being able to do that. And so the thinking is that maybe the comments yesterday, a message to China that, hey, the United States will back up its commitment to security in the region and is willing to back up its commitment to rein in North Korea. But we also want you, China, to continue to do more on that front as well.
Louis Martinez, ABC News correspondent, live at the Pentagon. Thanks for checking in.
Thanks, guys.
6:55, Big 550.